from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy Friday, everybody. We're live, we're national. Here's the phone number if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And some interesting news on Gene Hackman came out today. We're going to get to that in a second. Of course, today marks the day of the first ever White House Crypto Summit. We've got somebody on the inside, and as long as the deep state doesn't get at the phone lines, we're going to be chatting with him in a little bit. And we've also got President Trump starting to put some pressure on Putinsky, President Putin. He's demanding that Russia stop bombing Ukraine, threatening tariffs and sanctions. So plenty to discuss on many fronts tonight. We also have Senator Graham saying Congress should pass a rescission package to enact Doge spending cuts. Isn't that something? Lindsey Graham's always interesting. Anyway, I want to start with this Gene Hackman stuff because we have a report on some of what's going on there. Apparently, the wife had passed away nearly a week before Gene Hackman. And given his mental state, according to the report, that's why he didn't realize there was a dead wife in the house. Hard to believe if you're me, but again, I don't have all of it, right? I really don't have all the story there. It just sounds very unfortunate to me. But we got a couple of clips for you. Let's listen to the first one. Check this out.
The cause of death for Miss Betsy Hackman, aged 65 years, is hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. The manner of death is natural. Autopsy examination and full-body postmortem CT demonstrated no findings of trauma internally or externally, with microscopic findings consistent with hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. Laboratory testing was positive for hantavirus at a clinical lab, with required confirmation testing positive at Scientific Laboratories Division. Testing for COVID-19, influenza, and other common respiratory viruses was negative. Testing for carbon monoxide was negative.
So this apparently is what they've come up with, the hantavirus. And I got to tell you, of all the useless things I know about, I don't know anything about that. I have no idea how you get it. I understand you can get it from a rodent and whatnot, but this is an interesting thing. Let's see, orthohantavirus. Yeah. Anyway, just blew me away, this whole thing. First, the fact that Gene Hackman was dead blew me away. Then how it happened, that they were both dead in different places and this and that, and then they said nope, and it wasn't a gas leak, because I was certain it was a gas leak. Right? This is just one of those things. And sometimes in life, and again, look, I'm a skeptic on these things, right? I could sit here and go, I don't buy it. I think it was the deep state. And it could have been anything. I always use this one simple test. How much do I care? And this is a man in his 90s who was reportedly ill, even if he was in good health. In your mid-90s, at some point, you know, some of the people that I've heard interviewed in that age group, they're not dying to die, but they're ready to die, right? They've lived all the life they want to live. Even when they're in good health and whatnot, they're like, yeah, I'm good. I've done it all. You know, I'm grateful for each day that comes by, and, you know, we keep going. But it's no question that they're older, they're frailer, they're tired. And some of them, when asked, you ready? They're like, yeah, I've been ready for 30 years. I've been ready for the last 15. There's a lot of people that are ready. So when I don't mean to sound crass when I say it, but I'm just saying, God bless him. God bless him. What a life he's lived. His wife, not so much, right? She was a little bit younger. But the report continued. Listen to this.
There is no reliable scientific method to accurately determine the exact time or date of death. Mr. Hackman's initial pacemaker data revealed cardiac activity on February 17th, with subsequent pacemaker interrogation demonstrating an abnormal rhythm of atrial fibrillation on February 18th, which was the last record of heart activity. Based on this information, it is reasonable to conclude that Mr. Hackman probably died around February 18th. Based on the circumstances, it is reasonable to conclude that Ms. Hackman passed away first, with February 11th being the last time that she was known to be alive.
So there you have it. That's the official report on what happened with Gene Hackman and his wife. And I could sit here and be an internet sleuth and tell you, well, that can't be because of this, this, and this, and this, and it's because of this. It's because of underground tunnels. Did you know about the underground tunnels? And I can get into a bunch of things. But I'm not. I'm not going to get into them because I just don't deem it appropriate. I really don't. Some people are okay with old people passing away. And I happen to be one of those people. I let go and I let God. So rest in peace, Gene Hackman. Now, President Trump hosting the crypto summit today at the White House. And we have a clip of him. Listen to this.
Last year, I promised to make America the Bitcoin superpower of the world and the crypto capital of the planet. And we're taking historic action to deliver on that promise, as you know, around the table. Yesterday, I signed an executive order officially creating our strategic Bitcoin reserve. And this will be a virtual Fort Knox for digital gold to be housed within the United States Treasury. That's a big thing, Scott.
That's a big thing. You kidding me? That's a huge thing, right? The United States has a strategic petroleum reserve. Of course, we do have Fort Knox with our gold. And now we're going to have crypto. And let me tell you, I could see how some people would be critical of this, saying, oh, but what if you lose money? What if you lose money on gold? What if you lose money? The reality is the world moves. It moves in a certain direction, and it's rarely backwards. All the critics of the MAGA movement were like, oh, when was America ever great? Oh, he's trying to make America white again. Oh, he's trying to bring us back to the 1950s. Maybe in terms of values, right? Maybe in terms of, people saying, oh, when I was a kid, my neighbor would pull me aside and be like, hey, don't make me tell your parents about this. Those types of values, tighter knit communities, higher levels of respect for oneself, for one's neighborhood, for one's neighbor. Got it. I'm all for it. I think it's a good thing, right? I think a lot of that has escaped us, and maybe not us, present company, but us collectively as a country, as the current generations that make up America. And I think it's a great thing that we have a crypto reserve in the United States. What if it makes money is the bigger question, right? What if you make a ton of cash there? That's great. And what's the next big bastion? That's it, right? Crypto, fintech, everything is going in that direction, whether you like it or not. We've lived in an analog world for a long time, and it doesn't mean that the analog world ceases to exist. It means that a digital world will become more robust, little by little, slowly but surely. And that's really the bottom line. I met a producer today. I was at our headquarters office in New York City, and he was telling me he came from Barstool Sports. And I was, we were talking. He said, oh, for years, we've treated everything like a reality show. Didn't matter if we were doing a podcast or whatever it was, even an audio product, we always taped them, videotaped them. And then we eventually, he's like, at first they would just use the video for social media. But then they started releasing them on YouTube, and there was always a video component. And if you look at things today, I've been doing radio now. It's my 7th year. I meet people all the time that are like, oh, really? You have a show? That's great. Where can I watch it? And I tell them, what's radio? And they're like, yeah, is that on YouTube? And, that still isn't an idea that fits in my brain perfectly. But I could tell you there's guys like Dan Bongino that he's been out there hitting YouTube since day one. And I remember when he started doing that stuff. Right? Shortly after he started it is when I met him. And he took the bull by the horns and ran with it, right? Same type of vision. He saw where this was going. So it's no wonder to me that he became an early investor in the video streaming platform Rumble. The point I'm making is some people had insight early on. Super. That's not really the point, right? The point really is that is the direction we're headed, right? Digital is the way to go. Streaming is the way to go. People who tell me, oh my gosh, they played a sports event, a sporting event, a big game during your show, and I couldn't hear your show. You can always hear the show when you click listen live on the website, richvaldez.com. Because ultimately, that doesn't end, right? That's always there. And that's the way of the future. Doesn't mean it's 100% exclusive to streaming. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have paper currency tomorrow. But digital assets are the future. So I want to talk about crypto and the crypto summit and everything that's going on in Washington. Straight ahead with our buddy John Tabacco from Newsmax. He's at the summit, and hopefully we can get him on the line and get a live report. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The Treasury and Commerce Departments will also explore new pathways to accumulate additional Bitcoin holdings for the reserve, provided it's done at no cost to the taxpayers. We don't want any cost to the taxpayers. In addition, my order directs federal agencies to conduct an inventory of all crypto assets currently held by the U.S. government and determine how they can be transferred easily to the Treasury. Non-Bitcoin digital assets will be held in a new U.S. digital asset stockpile where they will be managed properly.
That is President Trump earlier today at the Crypto Summit and announcing that the Treasury and Commerce Departments will be looking for ways to increase crypto holdings. And I want to get to the bottom of this with an early crypto innovator. He's the host of Wise Guys on Newsmax TV, Wall Street entrepreneur. He's been on the program before. John Tabacco, welcome back, sir.
Richard Valdez, thank you for having me. What's happening?
My pleasure, brother. So I know, first I want to thank you for making time. I know that you're out there and you're probably schmoozing on a Friday night in Washington after the Crypto Summit. But I know you were at the Crypto Summit today. Tell us a little bit, what it was like. Give us the behind the scenes.
Well, Rich, we always make time for Rich Valdez.
Thank you.
But yes, it was quite the day. You mentioned that I was kind of an early innovator, started getting involved in cryptocurrency with Patrick Byrne and Overstock.com going way back to like 2012, 13, when we made sure Overstock was the first e-commerce company to accept Bitcoin. And for me today, Rich, first, years ago you had Jamie Dimon and Brian Moynihan and Warren Buffett out there saying that folks like me and Patrick and others who thought there was a future for cryptocurrency and blockchain, they were saying we were, Ponzi schemers. It was a fraud. It was a scam. So, to sit here in 2025 and see, America headed towards being the crypto capital world, and some of those same folks who were very skeptical about Bitcoin and crypto are now in the room on the council, and they're true believers. So I think it's a historic day, and I think there were some nuanced points that people really need to understand how good this is for America.
this is a good thing. And I think it's a good thing, right? I think it makes a lot of sense. What I was talking about in the open was how, whether we like it or not, we become a more digital society each day. And you can either get ahead of it or you can be behind it. So the event, again, hosted by President Trump and I guess emceed by David Sachs, who's the White House AI and crypto czar. What was the gist of the event today?
Well, I think the gist was, the president put out the executive order. And Rich, I just want to, hopefully start banging the drum, and I'm sure you've been doing it and do more, but people kind of just shut off the thought of Bitcoin because they don't understand it,
Yeah.
And at the same time, what the president was saying today is this is no cost to Americans. We have been collecting and confiscating and seizing. It's just scattered around. It's just scattered around through so many agencies that the president's saying, hey, let's bring all our assets to one place. Let the Treasury Secretary count them up. And then let's keep an eye on this stuff and decide if we want to own more. But no matter what, let's aggregate it as an asset for the U.S. people. And the first thing I think is people think this is like costing us something. It's not. It's just a way of getting a full accounting of what we have. And I think the gist of today was let's get some of the better thought leaders in the country on this stuff and start talking about how we can use this technology to the benefit of the American people.
Yeah, I think that's a smart thing to do. Now, when people, let's stay on that vein, because I think there's a lot of people that don't like the idea of crypto. I have a small interest in a jewelry business, and precious metals is, what makes money there. And a lot of people tell me, look, I like gold. And I ask them, what do you think about crypto? And they turn to me and they say, well, I don't know. I just don't trust that whole crypto. I feel like people can steal it. I can keep my gold in my safe. And there's a lot of old school thinking like that. What's your advice to somebody who is afraid of a digital asset?
Well, look, first and foremost, the currency that most of the global crimes are committed with is U.S. dollars. And many people don't realize, Rich, that when you hear about a hack or somebody's crypto got stolen, in like 99% of those instances, it was an inside job. Someone that worked at the company had your code, or someone that you used to be business partners with had the private key. And it's usually fraud rather than, intelligent hacking. So it's very safe. To me, there are very few known cases of any tangible amounts of these international nefarious organizations hacking someone's account. It's usually an inside job. And I think, look, gold is good. But, Rich, you can go now to Starbucks. You can go to Home Depot. You can spend Bitcoin and get something for it. It's really hard to spend gold.
Yeah, right. And hard to carry it, too. Folks, we're coming right back with John Tabacco, early crypto innovator and host of Wise Guys on Newsmax TV. So keep it locked right here. We're talking about the Crypto Summit at the White House. John Tabacco is there, and he joins me now live. Stick around. We're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
We're here because of your love of innovators, or as you might say, high IQ people.
Yeah,
we know you love high IQ people, and we have about 30 of them here in the room today. These are the top people in the digital asset industry. And one other thing that I think that you love is legal fairness. This is an industry that was subjected to prosecution and persecution for the last 4 years, horrible lawfare, and nobody knows what that feels like better than you do. So we really appreciate the fact that you understand legal fairness and that you're always willing to fight for the right thing, for legal fairness. You never back down. You stand defiant, even in the face of an assassin's bullet. It's an inspiration to everyone in this room, I think. So it's an honor.
That is David Sachs, the White House AI and crypto czar, sharing some praise for President Trump and saying there's 30 high IQ individuals in the room today, and one of those is John Tabacco, who's an early crypto innovator. He was at the summit today. You know him as the host of Wise Guys on Newsmax TV every weekend. And John Tabacco, welcome back. I want to, pick your brain a little bit to to give the listeners a real sense of what type of brainstorming, what type of conversations were going on at this crypto summit today in the White House. The deep state has gotten to John Tabacco. We'll get him back. We'll work on getting him back. But my question is always in getting somebody that's on the inside, and really it's kind of how the whole show works, right? I try to get you somebody that is always in the know, knows what's going on, and can really give us the skinny on what it is, rather than just give you, the most basic report. I try to give you the most robust or in-depth report as I run through my cell phone and call my friends. So, John Tabacco, give us a little insight, a little fly-on-the-wall insight as to the type of conversation these brilliant minds such as your own and David Sachs and President Trump and others were having today.
Yeah, Rich, it was great, and you played that clip. I thought it was one of the more important things that people needed to understand. The Biden administration, rather than one of the things that was being talked about heavily today was, during the Biden administration, there was no effort to set out rules, regulations, guidelines for crypto innovation to happen. The Biden administration under Gary Gensler was more interested in just chasing down people who were trying to innovate in crypto and either debanking them or bringing Department of Justice cases against them or forfeiting their Bitcoin. And there was no effort to say, all right, here are the rules. Now stay within that sandbox and go create. Instead, they used almost lawfare like they did against Donald Trump to stop innovation because they didn't know enough about it. They didn't want people to be innovating because they wanted to stifle capitalism. So it was more like a lawfare. And I think what Sachs was talking about today very wisely was, we now know that cryptocurrency is a different thing than securities or bonds. It's a different asset class. So let's make some rules around it where people know what they can and can't do. And let's make sure we protect retail investors. And other than that, let's let innovators go out there and kick the crap out of the rest of the world. So I think you're going to see some fast and furious rulemaking, not overbearing regulation, just some clear yellow lines that say, hey, don't do this stuff and then go do anything else you want to make the U.S. the crypto capital world. So I think the foundational meeting was lots of ideas, but number one, let's figure out a way to come up with some clear, concise rulemaking that allows innovators to go out there and stay within the rules, but bring new products to market.
So you don't want to stifle innovation with regulation, which I love. I think you need that. But I guess kind of saying, look, you can drive wherever you want, just don't drive on that side of the road. And I think that's the type of guidance that you need in something like this. Now, speaking of guidance, John Tabacco, for those of us in Radio Land that are, novice to the crypto world, and I'm taking this back. I remember sitting with you 17 floors above Madison Square Garden 5 or 6 years ago at my old studio, and talking about blockchain, and you painstakingly explaining it so well. When people now are talking about these different cryptocurrencies that Trump initially put into the U.S. crypto reserve, XRP being one of them, and that being a little bit different. What can you tell me, if anything, about XRP? And is this something people should be paying attention to?
Look, XRP was certainly one of the earliest foundational elements. The Ripple protocol, many projects were built upon. Trump, I think, people misunderstood the first kind of executive order. And they said, "Oh, wow, Trump's going to put XRP in the reserve." That doesn't mean the U.S. government is giving XRP some vote of confidence and they're going to go out and start buying it. What this executive order means is there's one Bitcoin reserve, so all the Bitcoin that we have are going to be in that pot. And then there's a cryptocurrency, a crypto asset stockpile, and that means anything else we've seized or forfeited from people, or people have paid their bills with XRP or Solana or others. The president's saying we're going to keep those, we're going to hold on to them because we see some forward value in them more than likely. But this doesn't mean everyone should run out and go buy some XRP, because to me, Rich, I think there's, a speculative play in XRP, and the blockchains and the protocols that they've written on are being used by some critical mass, and great things can happen there. But I go with the one that's most widely adopted. That's Bitcoin. Second is ETH. And if you got some Bitcoin in your ETH, I think you're in the most widely held. And the more they're held, I think the more secure they are. So, me personally, I like staying with the big two. But the president has expanded the thought process for America that, hey, these other ones, to the extent we have them already, we're not going to sell them. So that's a good sign for XRP holders, too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And John Tabacco, I'm going to take this moment to officially anoint you as the Rich Valdez America at Night crypto and securities czar. Do you accept?
I'm the crypto and securities czar. Yes, I'm for the America at Night. I accept.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Because
I would like I would like one of those knighting ceremonies like the Queen does for people, Rich.
I can get you a T-shirt with my face emblazoned on it. That I can do.
There we go. All right, I'll take that in lieu of the knighting.
Now, John Tabacco, it's Friday night. We're live. We're national in all 10 of the top 10 markets in America. And you've got an amazing television show. Tell everybody about it, what they can expect to see this weekend, and how and what time they can catch it.
All right. Well, Rich, I can also reward you with some really cool Wise Guys T-shirts.
Now we're
okay. And for your national audience tonight, you got to tune into Wise Guys 9 p.m. on Saturday night this week. We have an amazing show, but more important, we have on Billy Baldwin, who's kind of like a serial Trump hater, right? And him and his brother Alec Baldwin, there are a couple of Stephen and Daniel, they kind of like Trump, but Billy's a hater. Sorry, Rich. And yeah, Billy, he has a film out called Fentanyl Death Incorporated, and it incorporates how fentanyl contributes to homelessness. He made the movie with Dr. Robert Marbut, who was Trump's homelessness czar.
Yeah.
So we have.
Yeah. I've actually interviewed him. Very smart guy.
So we have a Trump. We have a first administration Trump czar with Trump hating Baldwin brother. Okay. And we're talking about homelessness and fentanyl, and these are things that bring people together. And me and Billy we had a little fun, but we kind of sparred it out too. And I think this week on Wise Guys, we proved that Trump's approval rating after the State of the Union was 72%. And I even got one of the Baldwin brothers to agree that Donald Trump is doing a good job at the border, and Donald Trump is doing a good job with our north and southern border on slowing down the fentanyl. So really great show this week. One-on-one, sit down, long form with Billy Baldwin, and he even tells me who the smartest Baldwin is, the fastest Baldwin is. So we had some fun this week, Rich. But we always miss you. You weren't on. That's the one problem.
Well, I'm happy to be on when I can be. And John Tabacco, 9 p.m. on Newsmax TV. What does it replay? I think it replays on Sunday. What time does it replay for those who are watching on Sundays?
9 p.m. is the premiere episode. If you're listening right now, hurry up and set your DVR. But if you miss it on 11 p.m. on Sunday, you could tune in. And then right after us, if you like to stay up late, we go, Michael Savage follows Wise Guys on Sunday night. So if you want a late night doubleheader, Sunday night, 11 p.m. Wise Guys, and then 12 p.m. Michael Savage. So lots of good stuff happening.
So nice. You get John Tabacco twice this weekend. Make sure you check out Wise Guys. And again, Wise Guys is now, it went from 30 minutes to an hour recently. So make sure you tune in for that. John Tabacco, I want to thank you for being here. I always appreciate your insight. Our crypto and securities czar here on Rich Valdez, America at Night. Thank you, sir.
Rich, thank you. God bless.
God bless you. All right, amigos, your calls and more are coming up. Plus, I got a couple other interesting things that are going on that I want to share with you, so don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The president has been crystal clear, and he's been clear to all sides. The fighting has to stop. Both sides need to get to the table. We had a good engagement. Both leaders have said only President Trump could do so, and only he has been able to do so. We had an initial engagement with the Russians. The Ukrainians had a great opportunity to bind our economies together through that mineral deal. Unfortunately, that didn't go so well, but we think we're going to get things back on track. Secretary Rubio, myself, and the Ukrainian delegation will be meeting in Saudi Arabia next week to get these talks back on track, get a ceasefire in place, and drive peace home under President Trump's leadership.
I think both parties want to settle. I think if I wasn't president, this war would have had no chance of settlement, zero chance. But I think we're going to get it settled and stopped. We got to stop. They're losing on average 2,000 soldiers a week. That's a lot of soldiers.
A lot of soldiers is right. Now, listen, Iran, as you know, in my opinion, has been on the move. And President Trump is, basically saying that a nuclear deal with Iran could potentially emerge in the near future. And this is part of his reinstated maximum pressure campaign against Tehran. Today, part of what he was telling reporters was, it's down to the final moments negotiating with Iran. And it's a very interesting time, right? I mean, this is the quote, right? It's a very interesting time in history. This is Trump. But we have a situation with Iran that something is going to happen very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess. Hopefully, we can have a peace deal. I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other. But the other will solve the problem. So, again, Trump letting reporters know that he sent a letter to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, pushing Tehran to agree to a nuclear agreement. This is according to a report in Fox, or face military consequences, according to the clip that was released from Fox Business. And that's part of a show that they're airing on Sunday. So, I don't know. It continues a little bit. Trump says, I would rather negotiate. I'm not sure that everybody agrees with me, but we can make a deal that would be just as good if you won militarily. And I think that quote right there, and I should have done it in my my Trump impression, but that's really Trump, right? That's how he thinks all the time. He's always like, look, we can do the military thing. We've been doing that forever. This is the United States. It's what we do here, right? We make bombs, lots of big bombs. But if we can make a deal, wouldn't that be better? And honestly, I got to tell you, it's one of it's a big part of the appeal for me with Trump is the fact that he's willing to forego business as usual and continually feed the military-industrial complex in lieu of making a deal, a win-win in most situations. And I think that's terrific, you know? Really think about that, right? You can always, I guess I liken it to like disagreements in the household, whether they're with your wife or your children or a sibling or any other family member, right? You can always go to war with them. That's probably the last thing you want to do. But if you can make a deal, well, wouldn't that be great? Can't we all just get along, right? And I think that's where we are. Anyway, I want to get to your calls. My screen is frozen, so tell me who we got and the call letters, please. Oh, we're going to break. I have to take a break here, so I'm going to take a break, and we're going to come right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Two very special proclamations, the first of which is a proclamation that proclaims March 2025 as Women's History Month in honor of all the wonderful women in your administration, all the wonderful women in America, and in honor of everything you've done for women and this administration has done for women in just, a month and a half? So.
Yeah, we've done a lot, and women have done a lot for us, right? This is an honor.
That, of course, President Trump yesterday recognizing Women's History Month. And I'm going to go to the phones. Let's hit the phones. 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Michael calling us from Washington, D.C., WMAL. Go right ahead.
Well, once again, brother, I get a chance to talk to you for the second time. This is the second time I called your show, brother.
Always a pleasure. That's why we call it Open Phones across America.
There you go. The only problem I had, I wish that I can get your show for 3 hours. In D.C., we can only get your show for 2 hours. And hopefully that could be worked out, so maybe one day,
Yes, sir.
And also, before I get started, I just want to give a congratulations to Vince Colonnese. That's going to be taking over the Dan Bongino show, and he deserves that. He's very good. And now I don't know who's going to take
him on Twitter.
Oh, did you? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know who's going to take his time slot, but I certainly wish that they give
My
it
vote
to the
is
man
for you, Mike. I think you should take his spot. Anyway, Mike, you got about 30 seconds before you hear music.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that I wish they would give it to the man, to the show of the man who single-handedly made News Talk Saturday great again, my buddy Dan Gaffney. He brings a lot of electricity on Saturdays. If you ever listen to him on Saturdays.
I haven't, but your vote has gone in. Everybody heard it. Mike, thanks for the call, brother. I appreciate it. All right, amigos. For some of you, it's the end of the road. For others, you're coming right back for another hour. Either way, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez. And for some of you, I'm coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy to be here with you this Friday night. We're live, we're national, about 7 minutes or so past the hour of 10 p.m. Eastern Time, that's New York time, and our phone number, 833-4825-337-8334-Valdez. I'm hoping you'll join us on our late night national town hall conversation. Looking forward to hearing from you on your thoughts and your opinions on everything that's going on in America at night. And some of the stuff that I've been looking at are some of these headlines. Trump has cut over $400 million in grants to Columbia University over their anti-Semitic behavior. Then you've got, there's a lot of controversy about the Open Societies Foundation and some of their affiliated entities getting some of the money from USAID and then granting it to other organizations. And the Soros team has pushed back saying, look, that wasn't us. We didn't do that. And to me, it's kind of reminiscent of Anthony Fauci when he said, no, we did not fund gain of function research. We funded Echo Health Alliance, and they funded the gain of function research. I think that's the kind of game that's going on here, and we see that game all over Washington. That's just literally how they play the game. We also have the media. The media continues, and again, when I refer to the media, I can include myself, but I'm really talking about our friends at MSNBC, our friends at ABC News, our friends at CNN, and they were a little bent out of shape, and they brought back an OG, a throwback, one of the older guys, if you will, and his name, Chris Matthews. Remember him when he said, "Oh, it sends a thrill down my leg." Anyway, good old Chris Matthews and the thrill running up his leg. He chimed in on Trump, and it was hard for him. It was hard for me to follow what he was saying because I felt like he wasn't really tracking well. But listen to this.
And with Zelensky on television, he said it was great television. I never forget that. It was great television where he beat up this guy on television, he and J.D. Vance. And they just did it in public. So we all know what Ronald would.
J.D. Vance Pants. What's going on with that? Go ahead.
Donald Trump thinks of Zelensky. He's teaching us. Don't trust Social Security so he can go after it. Don't trust Ukraine because he's going to go after Ukraine and diminish that country and its size and its importance. All because this is what Trump thinks. And that's what it's about. It is Mussolini. It's about believing the leader in what he says verbatim. And that's what Trump does on television. And he's using us to do it, using the medium.
Now, that's Chris Matthews. Having a little bit of a meltdown there, like the media does. And what's interesting is I've never heard him say, don't trust Social Security, don't trust this so we can go after it. And I understand he's not saying that Trump said so we can go after it. He said that, he said don't trust this so that Trump could go after it and eliminate it. But I look at this and I think I haven't heard anything, right? In fact, the other day, I think there was a clip, and we may have played it, maybe not, of Trump saying, in fact, nothing is going to happen to Social Security. Listen to this.
Social Security, it hurts our country. 1.3 million people from ages 150 to 159, and over 130,000 people, according to the Social Security databases, are age over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby.
So what Trump is clearly talking about here, is to not trust fraud, to not trust when we have people that are age 200 and above, when we have people that are aged 150 and above, when we have people that are aged 129 and above. And there's apparently 10 million people on the list he was reading from that are older than, I think, 120 years old or 130 years old. Now, does it mean they're all collecting money? No. Does it mean they're all eligible to be in the Social Security system? Yes. And that is part of the problem. So, no, it's not don't trust Social Security. I think many Americans trust Social Security, at least the ones that are on it. I remember my parents being on Social Security, and they trusted it. They lived by it. They swore by it. Right? It was a part of their fixed income. And I haven't seen any indication at all that Trump is doing anything to that. And I want to remind everybody, I say this a lot, but this is one I want everybody to remember, if you can. I learned two things early on in government and politics. And it was, you never mess with seniors and you never mess with little kids. Those are two things you can't do. Now, Chris Christie, and I served in the Christie administration, in the Department of Children and Families, he cut a lot of programs that were difficult for a lot of people to swallow. There were plenty of after-school programs that provided a very good benefit, but were completely unaffordable to the state. And they had to go. And they were cut. And there was all sorts of criticism. And in small part of my job, in addition to the programmatic management of the family success centers and whatnot, was dealing with some of this political fallout and dealing with the community stakeholders that were saying, how could we get behind a governor who's getting rid of after-school programs? And the reality was the state could not afford it at the time. And these things had to go. And, there were always recommendations in place like, look, you guys are getting X, Y, and Z on a federal community block grant. So let's look at it that way. It wasn't like leaving them high and dry. It was funding cuts. And sometimes the cities were eliminating these programs altogether because they couldn't pay their fair share part of it, And that was unfortunate. But I think, as far as I know, I don't think a single city actually eliminated after-school programs. I think they just lost state aid. But, of course, the media reported it as, they lost everything. The point of the story that I'm making here is when Trump says these things, it's not so that we can distrust Social Security. It's so that we can distrust the fraud. And the media has done such a terrible job, including Chris Matthews here, who wants to sit here and trash Trump and trash Musk when they're pointing out fraud. Let's be mad at the people that committed the fraud as opposed to shooting the messenger. Let's just give that a chance. Apparently 72% of the country thinks Trump is solid on his speech, solid on his accomplishments, and they're feeling him in the sense of approval. So I think something's going in the right direction in Trump's favor, not Chris Matthews' favor. So anyway, they might have to listen to a little more radio, because I think that's part of the problem with these folks is that they don't listen to what we're talking about. And since we have longer segments in radio, we're able to, kind of explain things a little better. I can throw in a little and ah that you can't really do on TV. You've got to be sharp and fast, and you're sharing a 5 or 6 minute segment with the host and maybe with another panelist or guest, maybe two sometimes. And when that happens, voila, there you go. You don't get much time at all. But on radio, we get to draw things out a little bit. And this is why I love me some radio. I really do. And if you love talk radio as much as I do, podcasts and news, you need the C. Crane CC Radio 3. This radio delivers exceptional spoken word audio. The clarity makes it feel like I'm right in the room with you. And I know that I'm your favorite host, so I'm not even going to say your favorite host. The CC Radio 3 pulls in long-range AM and FM stations with exceptional reception. It includes emergency features like NOAA, the NOAA weather, and the 2-meter ham band. Imagine that. So not only do you get AM, not only do you get FM, but you get the 2-meter ham band. It runs on an included power cord, but you can also use the set of batteries it comes with, and you get over 170 hours. Yeah, that's a lot of hours. The CC Radio 3 is known as the almost everything radio And that, of course, it makes sense that it would be. Listen to your favorite podcasts like mine, radio shows like mine, and the others. There's a lot of good ones out there. And your favorite music. You can do it with any Bluetooth device from any smartphone or any smart speaker. Now, what do you got to do to order this? Well, you call C. Crane, and they have a U.S.-based customer service number. I'm going to give it to you. 800-522-8863. That's 1-800-522-8863. Or visit ccrane.com/rich. That's CCRANE.com/RICH. And when you use code RICH at checkout, you're going to get 10% off any order that's more than $75. So do that now. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations.
Thank you,
somebody.
sir.
It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Big gains for native-born Americans for the first time in 15 months. The job gains for native-born Americans, for American people born in America, exceeded job gains for migrant and foreign-born workers. This is the first time that's happened in more than 15 months. Employment for native-born workers went up by 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. Now, you've heard the same stat where foreign workers were taking up all the jobs or almost all the jobs. In some cases, literally all of the jobs. And now it's 284,000 native-born jobs here, people born in our country, 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. First time that's happened in a long time. So these are incredible numbers, and they're very early. I mean, we're here for 5 weeks, but we have been talking about it since the big win in November 5th. So a lot of these people, they listen to us speak and they say, well, I'm going to gear up, and they're gearing up. And so they've been gearing up. They've had a little time. It's not just 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks plus a few months.
That, of course, President Trump today giving his reaction to the jobs report. And I want to get some reaction to that as well. I think the president raised a really good point, by the way, which was that he's been there for 5 weeks. And, of course, this is the report that comes out on his watch because he's had, 5 weeks, 5.5 weeks, whatever it is. But, it's a little bit of a curve there, in my opinion. But I want to get the scoop from Vance Ginn. He's president of Ginn Economic Consulting. He's the host of Let the People Prosper podcast. And he was the chief economist in Trump 1.0 in the Trump White House in the Office of Management and Budget. Vance Ginn, welcome back, sir.
Hey, Rich, it's a pleasure with you tonight.
Amen. Same here, brother. And I want to get, I guess your initial take on the jobs report. Mixed reactions out there. I think it's seems promising. Of course, I think we're always looking for more. What say you?
Well, you brought up some good points in your opening there. I think that if you looked at the total number of jobs that were added in the month of February was 155,000. If you added back in the number that were just from the private sector, because there were 10,000 federal jobs lost across the federal government. So you'd have even more than that, maybe close to 160,000, I think it was, in the private sector. But look, I think we've still seen that there have been some slowdown, and you and I have talked about this before during the Biden administration. It's going to take some time to grease the wheels again, if you will, of the economy. Yeah. He added $2 trillion in regulations. And so while I still think that it's great there was 155,000 jobs, and I think we'll see some more federal employees being let go, there's still a lot of work to do to get this economy going again. Well,
let's talk about that, because overall there's the yeoman's task of jump starting an economy and getting it going and ripping and roaring, and I think there's also the smaller lifts, if you will, that are mom and pop businesses that gain the level of confidence or the level of receipts that they need to have in their coffers in order to say, you know what, maybe we'll add a part-timer, maybe we'll add a full-time person. And I think that confidence comes when you start to see sales coming in, when you start to see things going a little better. And I think the writing's on the wall, and I think momentum is there. But with 5 weeks, maybe not enough to get everybody inspired to start hiring new people. That's my take.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it does take some time. And when you're coming from that transition, you don't know what all the uncertainty is going to be from the new policies. And there's been a lot of things that have been going on in the last 5 weeks. There's been a lot of executive orders that have said, you know what, we're going to stop this Biden regulation going through, or we're going to roll back these other regulations. And so that's been really good to see. Then we also have the discussion about what's going to happen to the tax cuts that expire at the end of the year. So there's this idea of the one big beautiful bill, right? And the House and the Senate, and some uncertainty there. I also think that the tariffs, right, the discussion about what's happening with tariffs and the trade wars that could potentially happen, I think it can be a drag on economic growth. And so it just takes time to get things moving again, like you said, and we're not quite there yet, but let's see what happens in another couple months.
Now, on other fronts, I want to get your take on this because the economic perspective. I had some conversation with my buddy John Tabacco, who was in the White House today at the crypto summit. And there's been the suggestion or the executive order to establish the U.S. crypto reserve. And this first crypto summit where the United States is kind of corralling all of their crypto assets in one place. And I think this is a forward-thinking thing to do because that's, in many ways the way of the future. Your thoughts on how this affects, I guess, the economy in the short term and the long term?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with this, Bitcoin reserve. If you think about the gold reserve, where they would hold gold, and maybe there's still some in Fort Knox. I guess we're going to find out soon. Yeah, but there's some sort of reserve of gold that we have already. There's been, Bitcoin has been gained through a lot of the blockchain and other things that have been used for illegal purposes over time. The Silk Road, there's just different things that have been used on over time. And as the government has gotten that Bitcoin, it's like, what do you do with it? And so the idea here is, well, let's put it in this reserve that we can hold it. It wouldn't cost any extra money. And so I think from that sense, Rich, is that, there can be some benefit of that. I will say I'm a little bit concerned about it. Maybe we could talk about it some more, but I hope that they don't get too involved in Bitcoin because it's good letting the marketplace work.
Yeah, all right. Let's pick up there when we come back. Folks, we're coming right back with Vance Ginn, former White House Office of Management and Budget Chief Economist in Trump's first administration, and he's the host of Let the People Prosper show. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
It's an honor to work for you. It's an honor to work for a president who works every day to get so much done on behalf of the American people. Your administration is moving at tech speed. It's really amazing. It's actually faster than any startup that I've been part of. Is that your administration moves even faster. So I just want to say thank you for having me be a part of it. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I love working for you, and thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, David, very much. Appreciate it.
That, of course, David Sachs and President Trump today at the White House first ever crypto summit. And many people are excited about this. Some not so excited about it, like Vance Ginn. He's the president of Ginn Economic Consulting, and he was the chief economist in the Trump White House Office of Management and Budget in Trump's first administration. Vance Ginn, your reaction?
Well, I like I was saying before, I think that there are some positive things to it, to what's going on with this Bitcoin reserve. The thing that I'm concerned about is if the government gets involved with Bitcoin. It's been a great market run for a number of years now, with Bitcoin kind of being left to its own devices. And the more the government gets its tentacles on something like this, the worse off it ends up being. I mean, look what happened in 1913 when we had the Federal Reserve and our central bank, and how they devalued the dollar to where it's only 2 cents on a dollar now compared to 1913. I would hate to see the day where the Bitcoin, this innovation that I think is part of the future and should be a competitive currency to the dollar. I don't want to see it get, to be frank, screwed up by the federal government. And so that's something I'm, concerned about, even though I'm excited about some of the potential for what Bitcoin can do for the future.
How would, as part of your concern, do you see the federal government screwing it up? Because as I understand it, they're just saying we have these seized assets from other places in the form of Bitcoin and whatnot. We're going to just allocate them here, right? They're not like spending any additional money.
Yeah, but it is, so they're not spending any additional money, but they are holding the supply of Bitcoin off the market compared to what it otherwise would be. Right. And so when you do that, then you're creating less supply. You're pushing up the price compared to what it otherwise would be. If they put that Bitcoin back into the marketplace, right, it'd probably be bid down. And so it's costing more for Bitcoin than it otherwise would because of them holding that Bitcoin overall. And I don't know what the total amount is. I've seen different amounts. I don't know if you know the exact amount, but that's just one of my concerns, Rich, is that you're distorting what the marketplace through voluntary exchanges would have happened. And one thing great about Bitcoin is that there is an end number to how many of them are going to be out there in the marketplace over time. And the more that those are taken out of the marketplace, whether held by the federal government or whatever, that does distort the overall marketplace.
Is your argument based on the finality of it? Because otherwise, I would say, isn't that what we do with gold or any other currency we're holding?
Yes, and that's an issue that I have even with the gold standard. Just to put my cards on the table, I'm more of a free banking guy. I would rather the government get out of banking entirely. Like I would close down the Federal Reserve. I don't think the federal government should be holding assets like that, that's holding it out of the marketplace, because then they can manipulate the price of gold just like they could potentially manipulate the price of Bitcoin. And so I think by allowing for the markets to determine the value of these different exchanges and the value of the currency in place, you get a much better pricing signal and therefore allocation of the resources throughout that market.
I see. I get what you're saying. I guess I suppose if we weren't in it to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah, because one thing, I live in Texas, near Austin, Texas, and they're talking about actually there's a bill filed today to have a Bitcoin reserve in Texas. And so if these keep popping up, right, then you are moving more of those assets off the marketplace than otherwise. That's something I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I get it. I could see how it could be a point of contention. Now, I want to ask you about the Doge with respect to trimming $2 trillion from the budget and from the deficit, rather, so that we don't have to borrow money to pay down our debt service and whatnot. What's your current take on the progress that Doge is making and the trajectory that you see?
I mean, it seems pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's more than I've seen in my lifetime. You have to go back to the Grace Commission of the early 1980s, which I was just a baby around then. But that would be the last time you'd see this sort of input and exposure of a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse across government, across the federal, the executive branch in particular. And so I think by exposing that and having Elon Musk tweeting out, hey, here's the different amounts and everything, really sheds a light on where our taxpayer dollars are going. And I think, collectively, we're pretty pissed off about what the government has done to the spending and the national debt reaching $36 trillion. And we need something like this to happen. I've been calling for independent efficiency audits of the government for many years now, and I think this is essentially that. And it's allowing for there to be not only exposure, but they're also canceling some contracts They're working with the executive branch and the president and the White House to come in and say, okay, do we even need to spend these funds? There's looking at a rescissions package, which will allow those funds to not be spent at all. We'll see how all this comes up within Congress. But I believe at the end of the day, Rich, I don't know how much that they'll be able to cut from the federal government's expenditures through DOGE. But what I do think is that there is a transparency item of this that will put more pressure on Congress to act to start getting our fiscal house in order.
Now, Vance Ginn, I believe you. Listen, my thinking is the same thing. I always think when people say we got to do this, I'm one of the first people to say we don't need a federal Department of Education. But I'm the same person that's going to say good luck getting rid of it. But it seems like there's some level of support behind that now. So are you able to stick around for a couple more minutes? I'd like to explore that with you if you have the time.
Yeah,
Right, so
I'm glad to.
We're going to come right back with Vance Ginn, former White House economist in the first Trump administration. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Do you know for sure he's definitely going to abolish the Department of Education?
He's been very clear about that. He couldn't be any more clear when he said he wants me to put myself out of a job.
How did you feel about that?
But, I think there is definitely a role for education to make sure that as we move education back to the states, that we are providing the tools for the governors, for the teachers, that we can provide them with research to show best practices. Because the president's goal really is to see our scores go up. When 70%, of our students cannot read with proficiency, that's just incredibly difficult to swallow. And he's just not going to accept it.
That, of course, is the Secretary of Education of the United States, Linda McMahon. And I'm with her. Work yourself out of a job. I don't know that we need a Department of Education, but I want to explore that and what it looks like and everything that might entail with somebody who spent some time in the White House as the chief economist at the Office of Management and Budget under the Trump administration, first go round, Vance Ginn. And Vance Ginn, you hear Secretary McMahon making the case to dismantle the Department of Education. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm all for it. I don't think that there should be a role, or there's not a constitutional role for the federal government to be involved within education, and in particular K through 12 education, and that should be left to the states and ultimately to the people. I'm hopeful that there is a path to eliminating, abolishing, whatever you want to call it, the Department of Education. But something else I'm going to watch, though, Rich, is that what else will they do with that money? Will that money just go to a different part, or will they move some of the folks that are in the Department of Education to other areas, and that sort of thing? And
like
hopefully they just cut it entirely. I'd rather them send the money back to the states to say, hey, here's the block grants. We're going to send it to states, or just reduce the federal deficit if they could.
That's what I'm talking about. Send it right to the deficit. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. My default is that. Right. But I'm also innovative. Right. Going back to the conversation we were having earlier, because I think it's the same premise here. I'd much rather see the federal government out of everything. But if they're going to get into something, my hope is that they don't fail. And I guess the tricky business or the risky proposition that you engage in is, okay, so let's just say you do have a successful businessman who's your chief executive, like as in Trump right now. But when Trump is gone, let's say you get some crazy radical left-wing person that wants to come in and start getting involved in things, the federal government, starting to take over certain things, or not take over, not the right word, but get involved in things and make a mess of it. right, which is what you talked about earlier, I could see the cause for concern there. And this is, I guess, the dance that one has to play if you're a federalist and you don't want them involved in this. But at the same time, you want to see the country do better. And I know for me, I guess my aspiration, my hope for this administration is to see the IRS abolished and to hopefully, potentially see some sort of dividend system where we're paying down national debt. And maybe, just maybe, if the United States engages in something it's never engaged in before, like being the general contractor on something like the rare earth deal in Ukraine or rebuilding the Gaza Strip or anything like that, that the money we make from something like that goes to debt and goes right back to the states, right back to the people.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely with you. I think that there are many areas of the government that shouldn't exist. I really would stick to national defense, the justice system, and maybe a few other public goods, but not much more than that. And so that's a lot of things that we could be cutting out. But I do share your concern that you brought up, though, is that if this administration uses the executive branch and executive orders and the presidency to take away things that we think are bad, when the next person comes in, they can just put everything in that we don't like. And so that's something that I think Congress should do more about. And, Congress hasn't got their act together. They should be doing more of this. And that's one thing, kind of connecting some of the dots here tonight, is that I think that's what's so important about the DOJ, the Department of Government Efficiency, is that they can highlight a lot of things to the president that the president could then push down to Congress to say, look, in this next continuing resolution bill for the budget or whatever it's going to be, we need to start axing all of this. And if you don't, I'm going to veto it. You can use more of the bully pulpit and put all this stuff together.
Right. And if anybody can do that, I think Trump can, because people tend to listen to him. The media hates him. Yeah. And that works to his advantage, quite frankly, in this situation. Now, Vance Ginn, I want you to tell everybody about what type of stuff you talk about on your... Well, actually, before we do that, I want to... there was a caller that had a question for you. Let's go to Steve. He's in Atlanta, Georgia, on WGKA. He had a question on the crypto stuff we were talking about. Steve, you're on with Vance Ginn. Go right ahead.
Thank you to the guest, and thanks, Rich, for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, I heard on the news recently, within the last week, that there was a $2 billion heist on cryptocurrency. It was a private owner, something like that, and they can't trace anything. So why would we ever in a million years trust our government? And then also with regard to Department of Education, he's doing a deep fake. He wants to put pressure on the schools to get what he wants done first, and then he's going to close it down. That's all.
All right, Steve, thank you. Vance Ginn, go right ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know a lot of the details of the $2 billion, but I mean, this is something that also happens with the dollar today. I mean, there are trade-offs that you're going to have with any sort of system, and so we just have to make sure that we're careful and have situations in place that's still illegal, right? I know they can't trace it, but they'll still, or from what we know, they can't trace it. We'll see if they can at the end of the day, to where there are laws in place that will cover that. So we'll see. I mean, it is something, like I said before, that I'm a little bit skeptical of, for the government to get involved with Bitcoin, but I do like Bitcoin at the end of the day for a market, for a currency. And as far as the schools go, I mean, I think you're right in the extent that I think schools should be looking at what can they do without their federal funds. There's a lot of rules and regulations that have led to many administrators being hired at high wages that are not going to teachers. And I think this is a big reason why the government school system is failing kids all across the country. I'm a huge fan of school choice. I hope we had more in that directions where the money follows the student instead of the system. And so maybe this is part of that process. I hope it is.
Yeah, really well put, Vance Ginn. Now, before we wrap, I want to make sure everybody can learn a little bit about your podcast and what they can expect to hear there and how they can hear it.
Yeah, Rich, thank you for having me on tonight. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Keep up the great work that you're doing. Love listening to the show. And I have the Let People Prosper show where I bring on a guest, and we talk about usually an expert in a particular area, and we'll dive into those like school choice, like Bitcoin or Doge, a lot of things we've talked about tonight. And those come out every Thursday morning. And then I have This Week's Economy, all in the same podcast that you can check out, where I talk about what's going on in the economy. All this information and more is at vanceginn.com, vanceginn.com. And yeah, please come and check me out. I'm also on X a lot at Vance Ginn, sharing all this stuff as live whenever it happens.
Outstanding. Vance Ginn, president of Ginn Economic Consulting, host of Let People Prosper podcast, and the former White House Office of Management and Budget chief economist. I want to thank you for being here. Thanks for your time and your thoughtful responses.
Thanks so much. Have a great night.
You bet. Good night. God bless. And amigos, your calls and more are coming up right now. Open phones across America, 833-5337, 833-4-Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go. Open phones across America, and we're going to continue open phones in the next hour, the third hour, the coveted third hour that some people get and some people don't. Make sure you go to richvaldez.com if you don't get it, or pound on the program director's door and tell them, hey, we want to hear Rich Valdez for all 3 hours live. Anyway, let's see. Where do we go? We go to John, Cleveland, Ohio, listening from KDKA. Go right ahead, sir.
I'd like to make a point that I'm neither Democrat nor Republican. I consider myself a non-affiliated leftist.
Thank you.
And I think the Democrats and the Republicans are really the uniparty of war and interventionism and imperialism in this country. And I don't think at this point there's a difference, though I see the Democrats, formerly the number two party of war, have become the number one party of war, warmongering, McCarthyism, Putin and red baiting, Putin baiting, witch hunting in this country. And I think that if there's any slight chance, though I don't support Trump, I think that we should encourage any moves towards peace in that horrible war over there. And I try to get some other sources of information. I found an article called The Deep State Gladio Crimes of the U.S. Empire.
Well, I'll check it out, because you know I'm a big imperialist myself. So I'll definitely give it a gander. Thank you, John, for the call, and thank you for your listenership as well. Let me see. Where do we go from here? Larry, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Go for it, quickly. That's not quick enough, Larry. Okay, let's try. What do we got? Not enough time, right? Oh, we go. All right, let's go to Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Go for it, quickly. You got like 50 seconds.
I don't have enough time, but I want to talk about, the hantavirus. It's where did the mice get the virus that it's carrying? And it's
Dr. Fauci. They get it from Dr. Fauci.
Well, anyway, there's a rat lungworm disease caused by African snails and these mollusks, these exotic pets that come in, and it's an invasion of species that is carrying this disease, this parasite.
Well, it makes sense. It's an invasion of species, and I think between African snail and Dr. Fauci, is there a big difference? I don't know. Call me crazy. I think there might be some similarities. Anyway, thank you, Frank in Evergreen on KOFI. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night and God bless. I'm coming back with another hour. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be with you live and national this Friday night. It's about 7 minutes past 11 p.m. East Coast time, New York City time. And our phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. If you want to join us, and I would appreciate that. I love having a conversation with all of our great many callers, and I see several on hold, so let me get to the news of the day. President Trump is always leading in the headlines here, right? There's always something big going on with El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. And something I want to, get into here is obviously the jobs report came in, 155,000 new jobs. Some people are happy, some people are not so happy. But I wanted to go a little bit beyond that because we're seeing so much happen with tariffs. We're seeing just a lot of things happen in a lot of places. And part of that, I think, is in large part because Trump has been using the tariffs very, very strategically. And that's the only way you can use them effectively. If you don't, it can be perilous, right? And we've seen that. I think it was Hoover, right? It was Hoover who, if I remember right. Anyway, point is, we have to be strategic in their use. And it doesn't mean that when you're playing, I'm going to say a high stakes scenario like this, that it's not going to come with some cost. Right? I think there is going to be some cost because you're looking at not just a today negotiation, but you're really looking at setting the tone for how we move forward and how we grow. So President Trump was on Fox Business Channel today with Maria Bartiromo, and a very, very interesting conversation. I've got a short clip of it. Check this out.
But I think CEOs want to see predictability. They say, look, I have to speak with shareholders. I've got to make plans for CapEx spending. I can't if it's 20% one day and then it's off for a month and it's 25%. Yeah. So can you give us a sense of whether or not we are going to get clarity for the business community?
Well, I think so. But, the tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up. And, I don't know if it's predictability. I think
so that's not clarity.
No, I think that they say that. It sounds good to say. But for years, the big globalists have been ripping off the United States. They've been taking money away from the United States. And all we're doing is getting some of it back. And we're going to treat our country fairly. This country has been ripped off from every nation in the world, every company outside in the world. We've been ripped off at levels never seen before. And all we're going to do is get it back. We're going to get a lot of it back. We're not going to let people take advantage of us anymore.
Again, this is part of the reason I am so bullish on President Trump, because he looks at things a different way. Now, I realize that we are not getting ripped off because these people are trying to come and steal our lunch, and we're just saying, oh, my gosh, we're wallflowers. Take my lunch. The United States, depending at different times and who the leader of this country was at those different times, was very complicit in these things. USAID was not created by the others. It was created by us to launder and dole out the money, right? That's in reality, that's what the truth is. So the foreign policy position of the United States, in my opinion, has always been one of bribery or threats. We will invade you. Don't mess with us. We have the biggest military. Or how about we give you a little foreign aid? Give you a little foreign aid, sweeten the deal. You do X, Y, and Z for us. Whatever the X, Y, and Z is that we needed these people to do for us. And this has been business as usual forever. Either we sweeten the deal, giving you some money, or we make a deal, right? Another type of deal. We sell you some arms, or we have to use the arms on you. And I think this has always been the way the foreign policy has worked in our country, and honestly around most of the world. Trump sees it so differently, and he thinks we don't need to do all that stuff if we can make deals, different types of deals. because he sees how business works. And I think that's an important thing, because I think we've missed that, right? You've got Trump inviting people in. He sees that AI is explosive. It affects every industry in every way. So he says, well, let's get some of these big banks in here to invest in AI. Why not be the AI capital of the world? He sees crypto moving and shaking, and he says, well, let's make the United States the crypto capital of the world. You name it, anything where he sees an opportunity, he says, great, let's get the United States in on this deal. And this is not an approach that's typical in Washington. It's just not, because it's not based on the grift, right? It just isn't. Yet that's what Washington's known for. So I think this is why they're pushing back, because they're like, I don't know, this sounds too crazy. It's so much easier when we can just, sell you some bombs or bomb you, right? Or send you some aid, or, whatever. This is how foreign policy always worked. So I think Trump is bringing something very, very new to the table there. And he's trying to establish something we didn't do. Part of these deals that I'm talking about are allowing countries to do what they want. Like we talked about the last couple of nights with the 270% tariff that Canada places on milk that comes from America. So we can't sell them our milk, but if we do, it comes at the cost of paying this tariff of 270%. But we don't charge them a 270% tariff if they send their milk to the United States. Why? Because of the trade imbalance that Trump is constantly talking about. This is all he's talking about. And I remember when we had Trump on the show, I played a clip for him with Larry King. And that's exactly what they were talking about. Trade deficits back then. And that was, close to 40 years ago. So Trump has been singing the same song for a very, very long time. And it's because he sees how business works. He realized, oh, wow, I don't even have to build the building. I can put my name on it, lease them my name, get a percentage of whatever rent or whatever, revenue they collect, get my fee, and voila, we have a top-notch property. He's figured out how to leverage so many things because he understands business. And I think there's a degree of that that's missing in our government. And of course, there's going to be a critic that says, well, business is business and government's government. I agree, but I think you can take a lot of best practices and put them into play. Anyway, I think Secretary Bessent puts it really well when he talks about how you can collect taxes without IRS employees. Listen to this.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this cutting half the employees came from. Yeah. What we did was there were 15,000 new employees. We did an evaluation. We kept about half. The ones that, Becky, to your point, were deemed essential to collections. Somehow the other 7,000, United States of America, collected taxes for 250 years without them. And look, this is playoff season for us. That game day is April 15th, and I have three priorities with the IRS. The collections, privacy, and customer service in that order. So there's nothing I'm going to do to hurt the collections. Over time, we are in the midst of this great AI boom, and I think increasing headcount now would be just the wrong time, as the private corporations are moving into AI, and I can't think of a better application for AI than auditing tax returns.
Secretary Bessent saying we're going to use AI to check tax returns. Listen, I'm not thrilled about it, but I'm pretty sure I've been using AI for the last 6 or 7 years to fill out my taxes, right? I haven't gone to an accountant to do that in a very long time. So just my thought on that one. Whether it's using AI to save yourself some money or using DEI to lose your company some money, we're going to talk about it tonight. 833-482-5337 is the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to get into this wokeness and how wokeness is, in my opinion, hopefully slowly dissipating from the national discourse. And we're going to dig into that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, you, of course, have a track record now. People have heard you, and they know that, in fact, you've got the goods. You have the talent, and you have the ability to do a superb job.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Because we're getting wokeness out of our schools and out of our military, and it's already out, and it's out of our society. We don't want it. Wokeness is trouble. Wokeness is bad. It's gone. It's gone. And we feel so much better for it, don't we? Don't we feel better?
That's President Trump at the joint session address to Congress and the United States Senate, saying wokeness is gone. It's gone. And I'm glad it's gone. I'm hoping it's gone. I'm hoping we see a whole lot less of it, and I think we have been seeing less of it. But I want to talk about wokeness and about a book, The Woke Mind Virus, because this is something that has affected the United States. And thankfully, the president's doing something to eliminate it from the federal government. But that doesn't mean it's automatically going to disappear from your social media scrolls, from your child's classroom and private schools and other places where the Trump executive orders don't have reach. So I want to bring in the author of The Woke Mind Viruses, T.S. Dixon. Welcome.
Hey, Rich. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So let's talk about this. You've got this book, and it's I think it's an important book because people need to know about what's going on. Why? What was your why for writing it? The impetus behind putting the book together, T.S.
Yeah, I've been politically active for more than 20 years as a conservative, and avid researcher, and I had put together basically a storyline, just following my own curiosity, trying to understand these strange movements that we were seeing in America, from first liberalism to then globalism, and then the wokeness phenomenon, and just the whole leftist ideology. And so I put this mysterious puzzle together over 20-some years, and I realized there wasn't really a resource to explain it for people on our side of the aisle in one concise, easy-to-read tome, so to speak. And, my wife and I, we became pregnant with our first child, and I felt this overwhelming urge to do more than just vote, protest, be aware, be informed. I really felt like I needed to do outreach and do something more, for the country, for Western civilization. And so I decided to write the book and put it out. And it really does do that. It unmasks these movements, it deconstructs them down to their core beliefs, what they actually believe, their hidden histories, their points of origin, where they come from, and their founding fathers and their tactics that they're using against us. And I go through all four of those belief systems, but I mainly feature wokeness in the beginning of the book.
And let's talk about these four left-wing ideological sicknesses that you describe as viruses, because I think it's important to remain cognizant of them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're up against. And so Trump is doing a fantastic job of making anti-woke policies to get them out of the systems of government, especially anything influenced by the federal government, which is where his power lies. But we have to understand that we're dealing with something that's akin to like a political religion for these people. And the woke component of the left, these are the zealots, the radicals. These are the militant foot soldiers, so to speak. And so you might be able to expel their belief system and their teachings from schools, military, and whatnot. But it's another step to actually not have them believe it. So it doesn't get rid of the believer, so to speak, just by changing the policy. So we will still be grappling with this phenomenon in our society.
Right, and I get that part of it. So for people that pick up a copy of the book, and again, the book's available at tsdixon.com. What would you tell our listeners is the main takeaway that they can expect to walk away with after reading the book?
Well, the big thing is, when you become politically aware or informed or curious on the conservative side of things, a lot of information is withheld from you. Our country has really been influenced by central planning since the 1920s and earlier. And so much of the information that's really important for your decision-making, important to understand about what's going on, is withheld or it's censored. And so a curious, politically curious conservative, really it's on them to go out and do all this research and to be consuming lots of content, news media, and whatnot to try and put a puzzle together to solve a mystery. And really, I don't think it should be that way. I believe that the information should be put together and made available to people so that instead of taking like 20 years or 50 years, look at Trump, he was politically active and informed for 50 years before he took office in 2016. And yet he still didn't understand about globalism, the deep state, the rhino, the level of corruption. And look what it cost him. He had to go through investigations, 2 impeachments, fake trials, 2 assassination attempts, a stolen election. I mean, he paid a huge price for just not being aware and understanding his enemy, his opponent. And so I'd say that's the key takeaway. We really have to understand who we're up against, what we're up against, and take the blinders off, be fully aware of this. And that's what the book does. It will fully educate you and equip you and empower you to understand what you're dealing with, where they come from, what they believe, and what to do about it.
Outstanding. Now, let everybody know where they can get a copy of the book. I mentioned your website, but I'm not sure if there's a better place for people to get it.
So on the website, they can find the audiobook or the digital book, but also on Amazon, they can get paperback, hardcover, or the Kindle edition.
Outstanding. T.S. Dixon, thank you for bringing us up to speed on what the book offers and your work in it. And if people want to find you online and follow you on social media, where do they go?
Yeah, they can find me at Real T.S. Dixon on Twitter or X or YouTube.
Outstanding. Well, I want to thank you for being here and wish you the best of luck with the book, sir.
Thanks, Rich.
You bet.
Appreciate
God bless. My pleasure. And amigos, open phones across America. That happens right now. 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez is the number. Looking forward to speaking with you. I see we've got calls lined up. We got Idaho. We've got Missouri. We've got Delaware. And I think we have a sighting of the Gila from Manila. Keep it locked right here, folks. I'm Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
Everyone, I wanted to give you a quick update. We have identified 2 leakers of information here at the Department of Homeland Security who have been telling individuals about our operations and putting law enforcement lives in jeopardy. We plan to prosecute these 2 individuals and hold them accountable for what they've done. And we're going to continue to do all that we can to keep America safe.
That is Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem saying that these 2 leakers have been identified and they're going to be prosecuted. You heard the lady. And I'm happy about that. I'm very happy about that. I think you have to do these things. We saw things like this happen, I don't know, for the last 2 decades easily. And it was always, that's kind of how we do it. We call it, what do we call it? Anonymous sources, right? Oh, it's anonymous sources, and it's protected under the First Amendment. Only the journalist is protected here, not the government leaker. And these individuals face up to 10 years in prison, she wrote on Twitter, also known as X to some people. And she said, we're going to find and root out all leakers. Prison time is what they might face. And her and Tom Homan have been working since last month to find the source of these leaks. And it looks like they are zoning in on them, or I should say honing in on them. So good for them. And I think you need that. You need accountability. You need to be serious. And I for one, am happy to hear that they're getting something done. All right, here we go. Let us go to Bill. Bill is in Newark, Delaware, listening on WDEL. Bill, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, how you doing? Pleasure talking
Wonderful.
to you. I hear your show all the time. I work an off-hours job, so I get to hear. I hear WDL on the way to work, and then on the way home, I get to hear you. But I've
You
never
and me
had a
both
chance to
work this off-hours job. So tell me, what's on your mind, Bill?
Like it. So just about like when you were talking about like the whole Doge thing and how they're looking at the Social Security, and there might be about 10 million people over the age, I think, of 129 or something like that. One of the things that I feel like, obviously there's people on the other side of the aisle that are acting like, oh, these are people who aren't actually getting payments. But even if you think that it's 20% fraud, which is kind of common in these kind of arenas, if it's 25% or 20% of 10 million, you're still talking. There's a lot of people that might be, huge numbers.
Huge number,
money is
huge
going
dollar
in.
amount too.
And why not audit that? It should be constantly checked. I mean, in the same way, in my opinion, I think voter rolls should be checked the same way.
Yeah, listen,
we
all do that, right? Just think about like the way you take care of your kids. You're like, yeah, okay, my kid, I'm going to pay for my kid's lunch. I'm going to pay for my kid's school. I'm going to pay for my kid's X, Y, and Z. And, somebody, hey, how about this kid? That's not my kid. I'm not taking care of that one, right? We wouldn't do it in our real lives. We wouldn't just automatically assume, the responsibility to financially care for anybody. Yet when it's other people's money and it's the taxpayer dollars, everybody seems to not care.
And one of the things I read the other day was that, I think Doge put it out, was that the oldest living person in America right now is 114. So even if there are all these people over 129, that's well over the age of the oldest known person in America. So then if it's 10 million people, even if the payments aren't going through, just delete them from the roll.
100%. I think you're right. I think we have to stay on that. That's a responsibility that's literally the government's job, right? They're here to keep us safe and protect us. Why aren't they protecting us and keeping our voter rolls safe, protecting us and keeping our Social Security rolls safe? This is what we entrust them to do. Instead, we have to kind of watch the people that are there to watch our money. And that's crazy. I appreciate the call, Bill. Thank you for the call, and Godspeed to you. Bill in Newark, Delaware, WDEL. Let me see. Where do we go? We're going to go to Gil. Gil's calling us from Manila, Philippines, streaming the show, richvaldez.com. The Gilla from Manila. Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, good evening. A couple of things. First of all, President Trump raised the fact that the United States ranks now number 40 in the world as far as the students of the United States compared to their counterparts in other countries. I know this country pretty well. In the United States, there are 180 academic days in a school year. That's the equivalent of 36 5-day weeks. In this country, there are 209 academic days in the school year. That's an extra month, and the school day is longer. So I think intuitively you will get a better outcome if the students spend more time in school.
Yeah. Well, you know, this, I'll tell you a quick little story along the same lines, Gil, because I agree with what you're saying. In 2011, the outgoing secretary or I guess commissioner of education in the state of New Jersey, a guy named Brett Schundler, who I'd known for some time, had an idea to open a charter school that was designed a certain way. And it was very against the grain. He said, everybody's always trying to go with small class sizes. He's like, I think we can do class sizes of 35 students and not lose any academic integrity. And we did that. And we also talked about kids going to school from 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 at night. And we did that too. It wasn't a full day class like that. It was, you know, some aftercare program and a before care program. But it was a kid being in our building from 6:30 to 6:30 because parents worked and they couldn't get back and forth in time. And we wanted to give the best experience to the young scholar. And all of these things that seemed unconventional. And we managed to, on some occasions, beat the district school and on other occasions to just remain competitive with the district school. But we were doing things so differently. And when you meet these students and you see how they behave in the classroom and you look at referrals and behavioral issues that were, I don't want to say non-existent, but definitely controlled, and kids that were really striving and kids that are graduating and going into the Ivy Leagues in, you know, at the school that we built, the beloved community charter school in Jersey City, New Jersey. It really is a testament to the parents' commitment, to the teachers' commitment, each and every one of the young scholars' commitment. And when like the old saying, where there's a will, there's a way, you can do it. And it's what you're saying in the Philippines. They just did it different, and they get different results, Gil.
Well, yes. And I'd like to make another comment
sure.
about a show you did about a week ago. You were looking for euphemisms about sex work and that type of thing.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
When I lived in Mexico, I had a euphemism for bordello. I refer to them as the Recámara de Comercio. You get the joke. 90% of your listeners won't.
Yeah. For once, I'm the one getting the joke, and they're not. Gil in Manila, Philippines. Thank you, my brother. Always good to hear from you. Thank you for your call, and I hope you'll call back again soon. And there's so many regulars on this program that I always enjoy speaking to. Our buddy Pat from Arizona. Kim in Shields, Michigan, who I haven't heard from in a long time. Our buddy Doc in Delaware, and so many. Frank in Evergreen. I mean, and there's plenty more. Bill in Jefferson City, Missouri. Just a lot of great. Paul in Boise. Just a lot of great regulars. Anyway, we're going to take a pause right here. We're going to come right back and continue with some of those great regulars straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with your calls and more. Open phones across America. I want to go to Bill. Bill is in Jefferson City, Missouri, KLIK, our resident historian. Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, Rich, I really enjoyed your discussion of the Junta virus, and I have a little story to tell about a 1993 four corners of New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, and of course, New Mexico, Colorado.
Well, lay it on me.
Well, back in 93, there was a deer mouse rodent droppings that we heard about when we went on a trout fishing trip out there to the San Juan River. And there was also an author, Tony Hillerman, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a famous Indian writer. And he wrote in his novel about crime and mysteries on the reservation of Navajos. And so anyway, that I just thought it would be. I know about the Junta virus, and we worried about it when we were out there fishing. But the fishing was good, and my brother-in-law and my nephew, and after my Air Force days were over, this was retirement sort of a thing, and it was really kind of neat. So, you got any questions about the rodent virus or the Junta virus?
Well, I feel like I've learned so much about it this evening. And, honestly, I hear about rodent viruses and I automatically think bubonic plague. But it just fascinates me. The whole story really did fascinate me that this woman died from that in her 60s. And then, Gene Hackman's walking around, I guess, somewhat demented. And it's sad. It's just a very sad story. And, part of me thinks that can't really have happened. But sometimes when things sound so crazy, they really are, The other part of me says, when it sounds too crazy to be true, probably is. I don't know. Bill in Jefferson City, Missouri, thank you, sir, for your call and for your contribution. I always appreciate it. KLIK in the building. Let's see. We continue. I want to go to Joe, Salem, Arkansas, KSAR. Joe, go right ahead.
Rich, no offense, but a few days ago I heard you say that your instinct was kind of against Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Well, mine is for sure, because you cannot define the substance of those items to be used for any kind of a tender. Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. Here we go again. We had the Federal Reserve, 65 Coinage Act, and now we've got this to try to do away with our cash. And that's you cannot define any substance. I was waiting for Mr. Tobacco to maybe do that, but he can't, because there is none. And it's setting us up now. I'm disappointed. I love President Trump, but I'm disappointed in him getting involved in something that's assets out of thin air. It's just.
Here's the thing. I get where you're coming from, because, like I said, that's my natural inclination, is to feel this way. However, and it's a big however. This is. I'm going to use gold as a comparison, but I realize that there are huge nuances here. But gold is also not a currency, right? It's not a currency. We're not establishing gold or silver or copper, for that matter, as a currency. But if you leave a job site unattended, someone is going to come and steal your copper pipes because they can make money with it. I have an interest in a jewelry business. Same thing. So why? Because there's value attached to it. And ultimately, whether it's called a currency or not, you can trade it for a currency. And that is, in effect, what these crypto, quote-unquote, currencies are. This is something that many of us can't or have difficulty wrapping our head around, the idea that you digitally mine something that is finite, at least Bitcoin is finite, and it is, because it's finite, it, loses and gains value based on a trade. But it is, in effect, just like anything else. It is like coffee, but it's not coffee, right? You say, no, but coffee's a commodity and it grows in a bean, and I could see it, I could touch it, I could feel it. I get that. But you can't see and touch or feel my voice, yet here I am on the radio. There are certain things that exist despite our ability to truly define them and put them in a box. And I think crypto is one of those things, in particular Bitcoin. And all I could tell you is I remember doing an event that I did and I attended where a friend of mine who was opening a boutique asked me to bring some people to an event, and I did. And one of them was Danielle Staub. She was one of the cast members for a while on the Real Housewives of New Jersey TV show. And she brought a guy with her. And the guy that she was with, I'm presuming it was her boyfriend at the time. This was 2013, I'm pretty sure. And he was young. At the time, he was 40-something. And I was younger than that. And I asked him, I was like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I retired. And I was like, you retired? What, you know? He was like, I think he was 44. And I was like, how do you retire at 44? And he said, oh, I worked on Wall Street. You know, I did well on a couple of things. And, you know, thank God I was able to retire. And I said, well, listen, brother, I need a stock tip. What's the best tip? And he said, listen, the best tip I can give you, buy yourself a Bitcoin. And I said, what's a Bitcoin? And he said, well, it's a cryptocurrency. It's this finite thing that's, you know, made on computers and blah, blah, blah. And he explained the whole thing to me. And I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand how that has any intrinsic value. And he said, well, all I could tell you is right now, if you can buy yourself one, buy yourself one. These things are going to change the future and they're going to make a fortune. And at the time, it was $4,400. And I remember saying, for one share of stock, it's $4,400. That's crazy. I'll never buy that. And I didn't buy it. And I kicked myself in the butt every day for not buying it. At $90,000 today, I'd be sitting pretty with a couple of Bitcoins had I bought them. So that's my thought, Joe.
Well, all scams have winners at the beginning, and then ultimately they lose. Like a while ago, your guest Vance, he said the government getting into it's going to cause problems. I see a crash coming from stuff like that if a lot of people catch on to it and want to get rich, you know, really fast. Nothing can make that kind of a...
I'm willing to I'll concede the point to you. It may happen, and I'm curious to see where it goes because I'm not 100% sold on it, but I did buy me some just in case to hedge my bets. Joe in Salem, Arkansas, KSAR. Thank you, brother. Taking a pause right here, coming right back. Your calls and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Open phones across America with me, Rich Valdez, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. I want to go to Paul in Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Paul, go for it, my man.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes, sir.
60 Minutes the show at one time was the premier magazine show. That was a long time ago. It's since stalled, and you have taken over its place as the same type of number one. And I'll tell you why real briefly. You are hard-hitting. You have the questions. You pump the people for the questions and the answers. And then you have your own answers that you make up as you go. And we've got to keep up with you. So it's not some simple question and answer show. You make it more difficult for us, which I personally like.
Well, thank you, brother. That was one of the nicest things I've heard today, and I appreciate it. Paul in Boise, Idaho, KBOI. God bless you, my brother. Have a great weekend. And folks, hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.